everything is going live now. And I'll leave it to you.
I'm Ligon Webb Planning Director. This is Roxanne Solero, our Economic Development Director. So I guess with staff that will be, I'll be at all meetings. I know a lot of you, but I'll know at least hopefully everybody. I do know that Matt Schaefer is on his way, apparently. So we could just kind of start out, talking about, I've done numerous updates of comp plans over the years, and the process of maybe having an ad hoc committee like this appointed. Citizens work separately, independent of the Plan Commission, the board, is something that I'm very familiar with. So what I'll do here is, we have a charter. The board has made some specific outlines, specific sort of objectives I'd like to see covered in this group, and obviously with the deadline, trying to have this finished by that April meeting. So we have a pretty compressed timeline to review the comp plan. I think the last time was 2021. State code says every 5 years, thereabouts. If you do before 5 years, that's obviously fine. I anticipate from this, as we go through the comp plan, that we handed out copies. It's not one of these situations where we're going to go back and do a whole rewrite. There's certain specific areas that we will touch on. I think probably the important areas, as directed by the board of supervisors, and we can see here in the sort of charter preamble of starting this ad hoc group, was to look at the economic growth, business development, and also housing and residential. A large guide to this we did not have it ready today. It will be ready very shortly. Maybe some homework before the next meeting is we actually did go through a strategic planning process. It started last summer to sort of be, I guess, a springboard. We do a strategic plan with board, certain community stakeholders. We're now giving this to this working group to read and to hopefully sort of have that in the back of our mind, or forefront of our mind, as we develop this new update to the 2025 comprehensive plan. So having said that, again, thanks for everyone coming. We can give a few more minutes if we just want to go around, kind of introduce ourselves. I will make a few notes that if you look at the membership, each district has appointed 1 through 5, obviously has appointed an individual to serve. Mr. Hughes, the Plan Commission, will not serve. Instead, we've added Don Reesmeyer. Did I say your last name right?
That's pretty close.
As an at-large member, and also in the AFD will be represented. The Ag Borough Supervisory Committee representative will be Mr. Bob Raleigh, and Jamie Timberlake will also be, I guess, sort of an at-large, but obviously Commissioner of Revenue, so he will be on this committee as well. So, Roxanne, kick it off. I'll introduce Roxanne. If you think she likes to add,
Roxanne, Joel, thank you.
Thanks. I'm Chris Shust. I'm a civil engineer by trade. I live in District 4, and have been working on various projects in Powhatan throughout the years.
David Anderson, District 1. I'm retired. It's my new job for a few weeks or a few months.
Good for you, David.
Yeah.
I'm Bill Melton. I'm a 30-year resident of the county. Owned a business in the county for 10 years. Member of the Chamber of Commerce, Electoral Board, YMCA Board, Lions Club. I did serve in a role of board supervisor for 8 years and on the Planning Commission for 12 years. And I'm looking forward to assisting in any way as this process begins.
Sheriff Notley, Brad. And our First Sergeant, Gregory, Rudy over there. We were asked to just bring a little insight into how it affects public safety, so we're happy to be here.
Danny Moran, must have upset Bill Donati when you called me. I don't hear him like this. paying the price for it. Live in French Hill, proud resident, now going on 10 years, moved into our house April 15th, tax day, 2015, so looking forward to working with you folks.
Love being right to the full room. Sorry, y'all.
Don Lewishmeyer. I'm also a civil engineer. I am a 25-year resident of county, lived in Branchway Forest that whole time, and also the current Branchway Forest Homeowners Association president. Happy to be here.
Roger Richardson. I'm a retired architect, still working. Some say recovering architect, but what it is. I've been here for 25 years in the first district, and enjoyed a number of activities in the county. I look forward to participating.
So, Jamie Timberlake, currently Commissioner of Revenue for the county. I actually came up through planning for about 10 years, so got a little bit of background with some comp plans. I'm also a local producer farmer, so just trying to bring that to the table and happy to help.
So I'm Bob Riley, and I'm a member for the Agricultural Forest District Advisory Committee and the Outreach Committee. Retired BCU, 37 years, professor of economics, director of the graduate program. I did pretty extensive work with the Department of Biology and the Center for Environmental Studies, both in research and teaching collaboration. I chaired the Natural Resources Subcommittee for the 2010 Comp Plan, was an active member of the Land Use Land Preservation, CWG. And that, as part of the 2010 CWG, my son James is sitting over there. He's a research biologist at the Department of Ecology, Evolution, and Natural Resources at Rutgers. James and I produced the first digital zoning map that the county ever had. And we also produced, with the guidance and assistance from the biologists at the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources, as the game department at that time, the map of the priority conservation areas in the county, which is map 2 in the current comprehensive plan.
I'm Doug Bradbury, representing District 3 in this committee. I'm a rarity to my calling, I guess. I'm a lifelong citizen here in the county. So I won't tell you how many years it's been. Anyway, I'm a civil engineer and a land surveyor, and I've worked mainly through my career with folks who are in the development business, and I've done development projects myself. So I've got a history of reaching back quite a few years, through the civil engineering and representing my clients, very similar to what Chris does in the past with the development projects from subdivisions to site plans and everything in between. Church next door, for example, was engineer and surveyor for the last edition they put onto that. But anyway, pleased to be a member of this committee and look forward to working with all of you.
We just sit speak. Okay. I'm Dr. Barbara Brown, and I am a landowner here in the county. I own a historical property that I brought back from the dead. And I was also on the Planning Commission the last time round and served as chair for 2 years. My interest is that I have land, and at the same time, I see us sometimes being too closed off and sometimes being too wide, and I'd like to see if we can address some of the discrepancies for the land plan. I represent the 5th District.
My name is Glenn Crawford. I have lived in District 3 for 46 years, and I'm a retired veterinarian.
I'm James Riley, Bob Riley's son. I live off Jude's Ferry, research biology.
Hi, my name is Martha Schickel. I'm with Plan RBA. I'm just here as a observer.
And I'm Barbara J. Cox. I'm also here with Plan RBA and observing and hoping to be a resource that's needed.
My name is Sally Taylor. My grandfather bought our property out on the Appomattox River back in 39, and I'm trying to create protection for the wetlands, which the Fighting Creek and Rocky Ford Creek come together on my property, and I have 488 acres. It is mostly wetlands, and I'm sure you all, if you don't know already, you'll find out wetlands are very important for the county and for the quality of our water. So I'm very interested in the comprehensive plan.
I am Taylor Liu. I am Sally's personal assistant, and I've loved working on her property. I am a resident here and have been for over 15 years, I want to say, so a good portion of my life. And I'm just here observing. So, thanks.
Arthur Gregory from the Sheriff's Office, otherwise known as Rudy.
That is true.
So are we accepting nominations for chair here? Is that on the order of business? or-
Yep, so what we'll do is we have a quick review of the charter, which I kind of did a quick overview of the purpose, to take the strategic plan work, and then move that into this work group and updating the comprehensive plan with the goal of having that sometime, well, by the end of April, before it meets. Having said that, I guess before I turn it over to the chair of the group, is we will need to elect a chair, vice chair, and appointment of a secretary. So we're taking, I guess we can start with the chair, any nominations, the voting, for the voting members. We have a nomination of James Timberlake. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. If you all would just, I guess, for the voting members, raise your hand. Those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so it's unanimous. Congratulations, Jay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Appreciate the confidence, I guess. And so the next order of business then will be a vice chair. We'll open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
I nominate David. Do you accept it? Anderson?
I'll second that motion.
All right. Seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Congratulations, Dave.
All right.
We know each other well, so it's good. We work together on lots of different projects, so that'll work well. Next, we have a secretary. Does that need to be a voting member, or can that be a staff, or?
It can be staff.
Okay.
I think it would.
I was kind of leaning that way, but if there's somebody who wants to and manage that with you.
I'm not raising my hand to be secretary, but I think it would be helpful to have it as a staff in that we're volunteers, and I think we need, if there is staff assigned to this, I think that's a good role for them. Now, if you would like to have someone to work with them to say, hey, that's what I thought I heard, or that can actually be covered in the meeting. Just as some suggestions.
I would
Like that in that form of a motion?
My motion is that we have a county staff member who sits on the committee to be the recording secretary, and that he or she work with a member of the group as just sounding board. Is this what you heard? This is what I heard. Because I imagine this had kind of moved very quickly, and it's hard for one person to pick it up.
Gotcha. So Billy seconded, that's not specific to a name?
I would second
Friendly
the
amendment?
motion that it be the planning director. And I would suggest the planning director communicate the minutes to the chairman. The chairman then would make sure that they seem relatively correct, and of course, all minutes would filter to the board, which will then amend the minutes if they're not correct, and then voted upon.
Filter to the citizens work group.
Well, this board, this is
Okay, where I was.
whatever you call it, adjunct committee.
Barbara's amenable. I'd second that as a revised motion. Is that?
I'm amenable.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Or any opposed? All right. Wow, we're halfway through the agenda. Let's go. All right, everybody have their copy of the comprehensive.
Question.
Oh,
Who's
go ahead.
going to be the one working with the county person?
Liggett. the motion friendly amendment was director, planning, which is.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
And-
You're
and the
asking
meeting-
who's working with him or who's working with you? That's, you accepted as the person who's gonna work with Ligon?
Sure, not a problem.
Okay, that's what the motion was.
The meeting's all recorded, so. it does
Okay,
kinda help
all
you
right.
go back.
But I think it's important that, in my past experience, that the minutes go to the chairman
Okay,
so that things don't get haywire, and then the chairman can say, in theory, I think this is what went on, and then it still comes to all the board.
Okay, then.
for
you
the
don't
final
need
vote.
me.
Okay, got it.
You volunteering?
We got a chair,
We're good.
right there.
I got it.
Well, you can share it with whoever made the comment. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, that's all gonna be distributed back to you for final vote. This is kind of the draft before it goes back out to y'all, somebody to look over it. I thought we were looking for a sub person below me to do it, but I'll be glad, no problem. And I think that's what Robert's rules is, the chairperson reviews them before they go out to y'all, so. But you always have the opportunity, before we approve those minutes, to make any changes, any adjustments that you feel weren't correctly, captured. All right, so we've distributed the comp plan. Do we want to just, have any comments on that? Or just go through distribution today, or what's the goal there, Ligon?
Yeah, I don't see whether, any problems, making any comments you might have. I don't know how many, familiar earlier each person is with the comp plan, so any questions you might have, or, I mean, sure, anything that might be out there, I'll try to answer.
One question, is the expectation that we would revise the land use map at the end of the process?
Yeah, I think that's probably, I mean, as far as, when you look at the charter, that was definitely housing and residential growth, and, I mean, that is obviously probably one of the most important pieces, simple pieces to this. So I would expect it, your options are change it, same,
Okay.
revise it slightly, it's really kind of this group's discretion.
We have a interactive map, if you want to put it up just for a second to show it. Like, again, I don't think we need to go into too many details about it, but Bob, having worked on this in the past, has a digital version that we can look at live, up-to-date background, not just a green piece of paper. So it has all the parcels laid on it. When we get to that part, I don't think we're discussing that change, but I think that is a end goal, which I think we're going to talk about some, task completion process and like where we want to go. I think the map is most definitely on the table to be reviewed, as well as any language in subsections or anything like that, people want to attach to it. I think this purpose of today was just to distribute this and make sure you had the most up-to-date version to review front to back. And if you've already found some areas, we can maybe put those on our task list here in a second, but I'll let Bob show what he's got just for a second.
Yeah, so this just basically took the future land use plan out of the 2021 comp plan, and, digitized that in here in a way that it could be associated with the tax map parcels. You can zoom in and out, change the degree of, of transparency and so forth. It's also got in here all the zoning areas for the county, like, here's a R2 area here, there's an R5 area down there. For these two, that's a 5. And it's got all that in there. It's got the AFB locations in there. It's got, the crossroads areas in there in the comp plan, and they could be moved around any place that we're going to do. And we can zone in, underline the whole thing is the latest high resolution aerial available for the whole county, just like 1 meter, it's pretty good. So we can drill down, and if we click on any one of these parcels, the ownership, exact specs on the parcel, et cetera, are going to come up right away. So we can focus as tightly or as broadly as we want to do. And it's very flexible for changes that you all want to make, things you want to try out, maybe throws a layer on here as an idea. It's easy enough for me to do. I'm happy to do it. I do a lot of those kind of things. So anyway, as I said, a resource for us.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I think it's important, paragraph 2 of the piece of paper that was given out to us The working group will be strictly guided by the Board of Supervisors 2024-2029 strategic plan, which I guess they're anticipating having the final draft here shortly to us.
Yes.
So we need that as quickly as we can get our hands on it. Because it says we'll be guided by that draft, with concentration on two primary strategic areas identified in the plan: economic growth and business development, housing and residential growth. And it says further, while the remaining areas of the strategic plan are vital to the county's future and should be given consideration, they are not core contributors to the charter assigned to this working group. I think it's important we understand what our charter is. Having sat through several, Bob, tremendous work, Sally's spoken to us over the years on many of the challenges that faced in certain areas. I think we need to make sure we don't lose sight, because rewriting a full comprehensive plan is a pretty big project. And if we've got a deliverable between January and April, it won't be a full comprehensive plan rewrite. I think we should make sure we don't lose sight of what we're supposed to be, what we're charged from the group. Other things can come into that, but I think it's important that we don't lose focus of that, because a full rewrite is a pretty big undertaking.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Will there be another citizens working group for the comprehensive plan updates? Because the board announced their intention to update the comprehensive plan by next December, or is this the only group, in which case the charter would be limited?
Yeah, I think once this group is done, it'll pass it on to the board, plan commission, and then they will take it from there.
So there's no intention to have a citizens working group for the entire comprehensive plan update?
I don't think so. I think just this.
So
great question.
I still have the floor. So what I wanted to say was, although there's been a limited charter, since this is the only citizens working group that's going to be looking at the comprehensive plan prior to the planning commission, I would think that there should be some flexibility for anything that anybody feels like they need to contribute advice to the process, because otherwise that'll be without citizen input.
I asked Mr. Powers about that, and I said, would people be able to come in and comment as you were going? And his reply was that he felt that once when we were done and it went to the planning commission, there would be availability for citizens to comment there, which is exactly what happened with this one. And then it moved on to the board of supervisors, and there was time for people to comment there. So we're just one step. There are two other steps where the citizens can come in and comment on the plan and make suggestions, and they can be made at that time. And I think his thinking was, we need someone to address something specific. And then if there are other concerns, those would more rightfully, under the charter for the county, be handled at the planning commission and then at the board of supervisors. I mean, that was my understanding of his response.
So, point of clarification, I want to make sure I understood what you said. You were meaning people on this group bring something to the table, not necessarily citizens.
Since
she's talking about open citizen input in public hearings and all that.
Yeah, thank you for
What I just want to make sure I understood. I don't think you meant citizens coming and speaking to it. That would be through one of us that something happened. Your point was, if it's not specifically under one of these two things that one of us bring to the table, is it for consideration?
Right.
I think that's something we need clarification on, because I personally don't think, and I don't disagree with Mr. Melton, but I think all of them are intertwined. If you ignore some of the land use things, the preservation side of it that are becoming obvious and brought up repeatedly by the public, the other two are greatly going to be affected by how those play out. So I think ignoring them, this is our charter, is these two specific things, but ignoring how they affect an AFD or a area that's in a future land use map that we've already identified as a primary conservation easement, and then we come and say, I'm just being facetious here, but somebody comes in and says we want to put high density residential in the middle of it, we're going to handle that at this level as a non-starter, as opposed to just ignoring the fact that it's in a preservation area. Does that make sense?
And I think it's smart doing this limited charter first, because if we can finish by April, it gives citizens a chance to comment on it. But it shouldn't preclude citizens from also commenting on the rest of the comprehensive plan update. So if there are other areas and there's not going to be a citizens working group, which I would strongly recommend that the board consider doing a citizens working group, because there's still 8 months between April and December, if that's the timetable that they're on. And there's been a lot of interest in these types of things at the recent board meetings. So I think it would be beneficial for the citizens to be a part of the process past April.
Mr. Chairman, so I asked a similar question that Mrs. Brown asked, and I asked 2 supervisors. And I was said, because the worst thing we could have is to try to put it together that the public will not have any input on. And that's a challenge. So I was explained to me that the planning commission would do their process. And there will be many, term was many, now what is many, I don't know, citizens meetings, workshops that the planning commission will have, where the public can come in and see and interact. And so, because the worst thing to ever come out of this thing is that this group does all this work, and then it gets there and it's not vetted, you know. And so I was kind of shared similar things like Dr. Brown was, because you know, by no means is that this thing people should ever feel that this is a committee that's going to work their tails off for 4 months and then ram something through, because I would not sit in that group doing that, because it needs to be much dialogue and citizen input in the final decision by the board.
I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I think, you know, the planning commission, basically, it's the planning commission under state law has the first look at the decision of whether or not the comp plan needs to be revised and revisited. That's a recommendation they make. The board, you know, say, yeah, we're going to do it, or no, we're not going to do it. But then how narrow that is, or, you know, what you take into account, certainly is within their purview directly under state law. But as Billy points out, I mean, the 2010 comp plan was the last full big one we had. It was known from the beginning it was going to be a complete ride of the entire comp plan, and involved many working groups, not just one, but a lot specialized, lots of citizens, and took the better part of 2.5 to 3 years, Billy. Really, maybe 3 years. So, because it wasn't rushed, it was a lot of work, and it ended up being well received, and I think has stood the test of time pretty well. But that is a major undertaking, and you know, under this time frame, what we're trying to achieve by the guidance we got, that's not even begin to be a possibility. So, I think we just got to kind of look at that. Now, that said, it is true that in the course of discussing the 2 areas that Billy highlighted coming out of the strategic plan, it's certainly impossible. In fact, it's likely that that's going to involve discussions of various things that come into play and might be either threatened or a possibility or an option or a possibility that you might have thought of, and that is on the table. I mean, you know, we do that. And in the end, you know, we've got, as you say, we've got to develop a future land use plan out of this picture, you know, which is holistic in that regard as far as what the charge says. So I pretty much concur with that.
Just following up on what Bob said, if the last plan took 2.5 years, it's good that we're starting now, because this one's due for a 5-year update, 2026. So if, depending on where this goes, it could allow even more time for citizen input, you know, prior to the 5-year update being mandatory.
It's worth saying that the again, you know, and you're inside the state code, but the state code on the 5-year reviews doesn't say you're going to redo the full comp plan. The state code says, again, the planning commission needs to look every 5 years and decide if there's going to be a review of it and potential revision and what the scope of that's going to be, or if there's, in their judgment, no need to change it, no need to review it at all. It's all an option. So we're not required to redo this thing. You know, that depends on what the planning commission and by way of recommendation of the board. You know,
I don't think the planning commission requested this chart. I think it came directly from the board of supervisors, so they weren't even a party to that decision. So.
Well, that's I don't have an immediate answer for you. Contradiction. There is discussion clearly going back and forth between the planning commission and the board. And if, to be honest, if the board said early on in the process to the planning commissioners, you know, I think we need to take a look at this, it would be rather difficult for the planning commissioners to try to not go forward with that, because in the end, whatever they do is a recommendation to the board. So I hear what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with that, just I think that's kind of probably the operational reality of it. So.
Yeah, I agree with both of what you're saying. I think that there is a desire for some planning commissioners that want to be involved at this point, but it hadn't gotten to that point yet. It's kind of the way I see it. It's at the citizen level, and then this input will then be massaged by the planning commission. But I know there are at least 2 planning commissioners that feel like they got left out of the fact that we're doing this. But I think they're newer planning commissioners that haven't seen the process work its way through. The citizen work group should lead to the planning commission, should then lead to the board. I guess they could have asked the planning commission, hey, are we going to do this? Or we want you to do this, and then let them form the citizen work group. That may have been a shorter path or a shortcut or whatever you want to call it that was taken. But I mean, I think the end result is correct in that the citizen work group is going to feed the planning commission that's then going to make a recommendation to the board.
Another point of business.
Yes.
The reason First Sergeant Gregory's with me is I think this meeting and this group that we're working on is important enough. I'm going to have to go in and out quite often. So should we recognize him as a proxy, or do we need to do that because I'm getting ready to go out and come back?
That's a good point.
It's too important to not have somebody here, and I would suggest
yes,
we consider that for anyone here that I've got a 3:30 meeting and I'll be a few minutes late. And I'll be right back.
Do we need to do that in the form of a motion? I'm trying to think back to proxy. I think it's just allowed if you've appointed that person.
I think Robert rules allow
Brad to do that. We don't have to have a motion. So
I don't have
properly recognize that Rudy will proxy your vote in your absence.
All right. Well,
got it.
And you're taking my seat. Be back shortly.
Thanks, sir. Any other discussion on, we were actually on just the distribution part of the comp plan, but good conversation. And we kind of jumped immediately into the strategic plan, which we currently don't have a final version. We have there's a draft that's out there, I believe from November 16th. I spoke to Ligon earlier today about it, but that's not the final draft. So we kind of need that before we can really act on any major things. So I think it's good conversation. I think everybody here is here for the right reasons. Do we want to move on to start looking at future dates, or does anybody have anything else they want to discuss about this?
Do we know when? It says due in December 2024.
I think the date, there was is it November 16th last date? So,
For the trade.
for the
Draft
for the
strategic.
draft.
Yes.
Okay.
October 29th.
Would it be possible, so not to hold up the work and the wait for the perfect, could we not use the draft strategic plan? I doubt that between now and when they finalize it, it's going to change much because they've been discussing it for a while.
Right.
I think it would be helpful. You can hand it out, stamp draft on it, and we'll at least we'll have something to work with. It doesn't have to be in stone. I'm comfortable with doing that because usually when you get this far down the line, it doesn't change dramatically to the finish. And I doubt it's changed dramatically from the start.
So I haven't sat in on some of those. I'll disagree with your second thought. First statement, I'm kind of in line with that. But from the first one that was brought before, I've been in all but one. I had to miss one of those meetings, and it has drastically changed from what came out of the company. But I agree with your first point that at this point where we're at now, I don't see any drastic changes that I've heard of.
It still has to be voted on.
But they still got to vote on it.
Three votes
Right.
in one direction, which in this world as we all seen.
I guess that would be.
Many of us seen it can change.
It should be.
But that's what I'm saying. It's going to be in the December meeting is when they're going to at least discuss it. And if it doesn't come out with enough votes out of that meeting, which I doubt, I think it will come out with a 3-something. Then,
or whatever.
Yeah, a minimum of a 3-something, then I think we will have it. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know that the intention was for this group to meet before January. I think the intention for this was to get some ideas, format, and those kind of things, and then start meeting immediately after the first of the year. So I don't think it holds us back if we wait for them, but I'm also not opposed to, if we want to put some meetings between now and Christmas and start some discussions, just know that we're working with a draft, and that could be time that something political happens between now and December 16th.
Now, Madam Chair, I apologize. Mr. Chairman, I kind of like that we can get a copy of the draft and
Yes.
read it and be digesting it. My homework to myself is to, and I'm probably as familiar as anybody, and some of us in this room, with the long-range comprehensive plan having. But I will be digesting and reading. I know there's some conflicts in there that I seen over by, sitting in the audience, so to speak, or off to the side. But I will get the draft, if we can't send it out to us.
That's public.
To read and digest, and then comprehensive plan, and then do some homework, as I always like to do, and be prepared to hit the ground running as quickly as possible. My understanding was December was going to be an organizational, and then I thought kind of do your homework and come be ready to fire. You asked about meetings. I do try to stay off of Facebook as much as possible, but I don't think Facebook's a very social place. If somebody, one of the best leaders I ever met, it's nothing social but social media. Anyway, enough of that. But I would encourage us, we met today at 3 o'clock, and if anybody wants to sit in the audience and participating in these, I know we can do it remotely, and they can look at it later on YouTube and all those things, but I would try to encourage us to meet at a later hour if we can.
That's the exact conversation I brought up earlier.
When I was on the board, we used to meet early, and I felt it was important we moved that back some, because first of all, you work in the city of Richmond and try to get to Powhatan in an hour, it doesn't happen very often. So if we can meet later would be good, and that's one thing I just wanted. The other thing is, how do you communicate to the public, or how do they communicate to us when there is no public comment period? And I understand the purpose of maybe not having a public comment period is to keep us rolling and not be sidetracked. But is there a way, can you explore as the chairman, a way that people would be able to say they wanted to at least communicate with us? And maybe they want to just fire an email to the CWG for 2024 workshop, help, whatever it's called, and they could send something there. And it could be from Sally Q, who says, I really hope you guys will consider looking at the big picture on how AFTs and watershed work together in good quality development, so that we're not limiting their ability. I'm fully expecting people will call you or call myself or whoever and have comments. But I just think some way to communicate to us as a group, just objectives. If they want to call us a bunch of idiots, I guess they could, but that's okay. But I think it's important to be some way that people feel like they're a participant, as much as possible.
How about this? What if we consider that they send all their comments to one person, who then can put them in even a file, and that way we'll have all the comments and we can start to categorize them. Okay, this concern is on this piece, this concern is on this piece, so that there is some train of thought that can be followed through each of them. If everybody takes a phone call and, some send an email, it becomes scattered. And I feel that when the most likely criticism of a group like this is that nobody listened to. And if it is written down and it is categorized, it clearly is listened to. I mean, it's just, and that may seem more work than people want, but I'm trying to think of a way that it doesn't interrupt the process, but still people can get heard.
So a web portal that captured that, or?
It could be a web portal, or it could be to one person. It is requested that citizens send their comments to, and it, Ligon's gonna hate me for this, but since he is director of planning, my suggestion would be that it go through him.
So I'm gonna agree. What I'm looking at is a place, like if we just create an email and again, the social media thing, like it's, where are we gonna distribute it or get it out to enough people that they have that email as opposed to like a link that exists on the website kind of thing that takes them to the email. Does that make sense? Like right now you have the county, if you go on the website and you can't figure out who you want to talk to, there's a blanket one that goes to the administrator in the county administrator's office, and then they look at it and go, oh, that's a treasurer question. Oh, that's a building permit question. They route it to the right person. This would be a place where they could go compile them in some kind of order and then distribute them to us.
That works fine. I
As
just
the
think
staff.
there should be a record.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I would agree with that, except if we use the web portal, I think, I personally would like to see all the comments. I could use artificial intelligence to actually like put them into categories.
Well, I think everybody should see the comments.
Yeah, everybody's gonna see the comments.
Well, I'm just saying, maybe everybody could, because the way a web portal works is you could just link as many email addresses as you like, and so they would click the button and they would fill out the form and it would get, sent, and then everybody would see it. And this way, Ligon's not responsible to keep track of everybody's comments. If a comment pops up and it's from like my neighbor, I probably will reach out to them and just be like, hey, I saw your comment, maybe we can talk about it. And it could be a little more communicative versus just, like a spreadsheet and they comment to the county and we have to see it like the next time we meet. Like, I would rather be copied personally on every comment. I know it sounds like a lot,
But I think that opens your personal email up to now some FOIA requests, some things that I don't know if you're willing to do or if everybody's willing to do. You can put your email on there if you want, but if we're using that for a county, if it goes through Ligon and he gives it to us all, then he's responsible for the FOIA part of it, not making sure that I got it. And that's, I'm coming from a little different aspect. If I put Don Rismeyer's personal email on there that he's getting CC'd on it now, that opens your email up to some FOIA requests that I don't know if everybody is willing to.
I'm not willing to do that.
Right. So I like the idea, but I think it still needs to be filtered through a county staff that.
I can put correspondences as
Right.
an agenda item, just say, here's correspondence we've gotten between the last time we meet. We're gonna be meeting probably, way more than once a month, so.
Yeah, I'd say it probably would be
It
twice.
won't be that often that we won't be able to be updated.
So,
Is there a reason that, just kind of follow up on where that's coming from? Is there a reason with a web portal approach that the members of the CWG can't log into the web portal and see
Oh, and look
stuff
at
as they come up?
I think IT could easily set that up.
They can set you a password.
That way, everybody feels like they're current with all that stuff that came on. They're gonna pay more attention to this one or that one, or what made sense here.
Because not to disagree with you, but only getting them at a meeting might not be as effective as us having the time to read them in between. So I think
I'm looking at John here to see what he's thinking.
Well, say it, John still in the hall?
Oh, I didn't know he was still here. John.
I was listening. What was the question?
So, any web portal, much like the county has for like the any question asked thing, that's specific for the CWG, that Ligon is kind of overseeing, access for members to be able to go in there and read that stuff without it being like a FOIA connected to their personal emails and that kind of thing.
So you only know send ads.
That's right.
That means you know. Okay.
So, yeah. And I'll work with him between now and our January meeting. So a good sidebar, but let's go. I think the path was when and where do we want to meet? We started on that. I am 100% in agreement of at least some evening meetings. I don't know that they all have to be there, but I agree with you 100% that these have to be open to the public and during timeframes when the majority of the public has the ability to attend if they wish. So, 6 o'clock, 6:30s.
I'm retired. Semi. So, Mr. Chair, can we get Matt to introduce himself to the group since he was?
Yeah, I apologize for being late. I had this down at Independence Golf Course. I don't know how or why.
That's Tuesday, that's tomorrow's meeting.
I don't think I had that one.
I'm kidding.
But no, Matt Schieffer, been a county resident since '91. I know Rudy, if you remember, we lived down the road from each other, I believe. I know Chris, other Chris. Been at Luckstone my whole career, 1985. When we opened the quarry, I know Billy made mention a couple meetings ago about the quarry and some of the concerns that we had, and it really didn't come to fruition. But been at Luckstone for 40 years almost, and been retired first year myself, so I'll have a little more time to work on this.
I think Matt's aren't you on the EDA?
I'm on the EDA, yes, currently. Have been for the last 7, 8 years.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I just usually can. Thank you. All right, so we're looking for a time for meetings. All in the evening, some in the evening. What time frame are we looking for? I agree with Mr. Melton in that 6 o'clock doesn't allow people to get here from work and at least stop by the house and get a snack. So 6:30 would be the earliest I would like to see if we want to do that or later.
I liked his idea of alternating.
Okay.
Have one say at 3 or 4, and then the next one goes to 6:30, unless
Okay.
that's more, I mean, I can handle that variability. I don't know how other people feel. And I also feel for the county staff, that means they're staying late if we do something at 6:30.
Part of the job.
I was going to suggest the same thing. I like that. If we're going to meet at least twice a month.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Mr. Chairman, frequency, I think two times a month, if we're gonna meet objective in April.
Okay.
2 times a month is probably, there may be some breakout groups, if there are, that may meet more frequently, I don't know.
And be in between meetings. That kind of thing.
Exactly. But as a full board group, I guess we'd call ourselves.
This is in the character of a plan at the moment, but the ability to be flexible if the need arises.
Absolutely. Are there advertising requirements, or is this outside of those, and we just have to make sure we're putting it on the county website?
We just put it on the website.
Right. There's no legal requirement as far as how many days ahead of time or any of that stuff. As long as we're putting it out there that this is our plan schedule and that kind of thing, I think we've met the intent there. Do people like the Mondays, or is there another day that works for them?
One vote for Monday.
Mondays?
2 votes for Monday.
Mondays, everybody likes Mondays?
Jimmy, isn't most of the planning commission and supervisor meeting Mondays and Tuesdays?
They're Tuesdays, and there's typically only one board meeting a month that's on a Monday, so as long as we avoid that Monday, I think we're okay.
First Monday of the month.
Well, they're gonna start budgets, aren't they?
Well, budgets, EDAs on Mondays,
There's no board members
second
on this committee.
Mondays, boards the fourth
Sure.
Monday.
So I don't disagree with that, but I'm not gonna sit in this meeting and miss a board meeting and what's going on there.
Good point.
That's, yeah, I mean, that's been one of my pet peeves for the years with the school, sorry, to say that out loud, but they schedule their meetings on the same, like known county meetings, and it's hard for people to participate in both.
I can go either,
But if they
anyone,
do a
any night.
second and a fourth.
Well, it's
and
first
second-
Mondays for planning commission and it's third
Yeah.
Tuesdays for the board, so we should pick weeks 2 and 4 for the benefit of the staff.
Good job, Howard.
Does that work? And that's exactly where I was going with the next one, which would be, when's EDA?
That's the second Monday. I heard.
All right, how about, can we go to Wednesday? Does Wednesday work for people?
Next Bible study.
If you're doing it at night.
During the day.
So the question is the second Monday is the EDA? Are y'all meeting every month?
Yep.
Yes.
What time of day do you meet?
6.
So could we do the early meeting, 3 o'clock meeting that day?
Right.
I mean, time to put them on one day instead of 2.
Does that work with you, Chris?
Great if we could avoid it, but sure, I'll do whatever you ask me to. So.
We're talking about 4 months.
So second Tuesday,
I'll have
It'd be the early meeting.
At
3
3.
o'clock.
So that's the 7th and the 21st? 21st wouldn't be the early meeting.
Well, PLI is.
PLI starts the 21st,
What time is that?
evening, 6 to 9, 7 to 9, something like that.
So second Tuesday at 3. And what was the?
21st.
We told me just December.
No, this is January.
January.
Yes.
Second Monday or second Tuesday?
Second Tuesday at 3. And then there's a Monday day for the 6 PM one.
I thought we were doing all Tuesdays.
The fourth Mondays at 6.
Mr.
That's
Chair,
board
I thought board meeting was Tuesday, no? Monday.
No, board meetings are Mondays.
Can we do the 21st? So it's the second and
But,
That's the one I was just saying, but that's PLI. That interferes
I mean,
with PLI.
we're planning on meeting in here every time, right?
Yeah,
I mean, where do they meet at?
all of them.
all those.
Oh, yeah, they move all over.
Okay, so we can just, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, and I say we start in here would be the plan, and then if we outgrow this room, we move down the hall. I mean, they've still got the floor down there where you can kind of set a work group up at the floor level.
Chairman's decision.
Yeah.
To get the big bucks for it.
Right. So then February
So can you go back over the
Yes, sir.
January dates?
7th at 3, 21st at 7.
what's 7, not 6:30?
Say those again, Jim.
I mean, I can do 6:30. What do we like,
I
6:30?
would prefer to do 6:30.
I'm good.
We're liking 2-hour time slots.
21.
Yes, sir.
Say those again, Jim.
January 7th at 3. January 21st at 6:30 PM.
6:30.
And the goal will always be this building. We'll start here, and if, 1,000 people show up, we'll move.
No December meeting.
No December meeting right now. We're just gonna get a bunch of communication from Ligon as some things get approved.
Homework.
Yeah, homework between now and then.
The assumption is the board wants recommendations at their April board meeting or planning commission meeting? Boards.
I think it's board meeting.
I think these go to the board.
So we're looking at 2 January, 2 Februarys, 2 Marches, and an April. 7 meetings.
So February would be
4th and 18th.
4th and 18th.
4th at 3, the 18th at 6:30. March.
Kind of thinking that's right, and we're just talking March, and then we're talking about 6 meetings total.
7.
One in April.
We get one in April, kind of the final.
But, we just gotta be flexible because that may not get the job done, and they'll probably become clear to us, as we move closer. But at least we'll have standing meetings.
Yeah.
I do have an unavoidable conflict on the 4th, but I might be able to listen at least.
February or March?
Yeah, I'll be out of state, but I should be driving by then.
March, I have the 4th at 3 PM and the 18th at 6:30.
Yes, sir.
Then April 1st.
No,
Wait.
8.
I'm gonna wait for the, I will wait for the minutes, the meeting to come out, that way I'll put it on the right stuff on the calendar.
That's what I read. 7 meetings.
You're right.
8.
I got January's on my calendar, the other ones I'm gonna wait till the minutes come out.
Yeah, because February and March are always the same because of
Yes, so we have April 1st at 3 PM.
1st or 8th? I'd do, well, let's put the 1st on the calendar. Well, is that planning commission?
That's at night, that's all.
Okay, so that'd be the 3 o'clock meeting, we're good. Okay,
Okay, yep.
and then that gives us some wiggle room if we need it between the April and that meeting. And as Bob keeps pointing out, we can have lots of other meetings in between if we need to. And again, the meetings, I think, are, in my opinion, those will be where we have major discussion and consensus on items as we move through. I don't know that we're all going to agree on everything, but when we have consensus on an item, that item is done and we move on, as we're setting our goals, and which is the next one. If we're good with meetings, just establish kind of a task completion process. Do we want to go ahead and form any subcommittees now, even just between the two groups? One being economic growth for the business and one being dealing with residential. If there's anybody that wants to specifically be on those two different subcommittees. I don't think you have a direct assignment yet, but if that's somewhere that you'd be interested in, those would be the obvious two subcommittees that would, if at all.
Having not read the draft that's out there from the board, I'd ask that
just wait on that.
some time that I can read the draft with some more specifics in it, and then I'd be glad to volunteer for one of the committees. But I'm not sure right now I want to say I want to do this one.
Yep.
When, I'm not sure that I
So
read the specifics.
do we want to have a late December meeting once you've had a chance specifically to identify tasks and topics for the next meeting, right? Like you're not going into discussion necessarily a ton. It would be, I've reviewed it. These are the things that we think we want to identify as tasks. Because again, those are the things we have to do first is identify. We can still finish talking about today kind of the task process, but identifying the individual task or topic for January. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Can we send you an email only because I'm gone most of the last part of the month?
Yeah, and it would have to be after the 16th. So you're only really talking about that week before you go into Christmas, or the last week of December in between that, and we're already meeting on the 7th. So you'd really only be talking about a week at that point. Does it make a difference? Because if you're waiting for the final draft of the 16th.
Well, I thought we weren't waiting on the final draft.
No, I meant for this meeting.
Okay.
No, we're definitely, people can start doing their homework and those things. You're either talking next week, right? I mean, remember, again, the compressed timeline is what it is. We're standing here, we're not gonna meet this week, later this week. Next week would be the 9th through the 13th. The Monday after that is the 16th, when the board is actually having that meeting and supposed to finalize their draft. Do we want to meet later in that week? But that would only give you a compressed timeline to review what they do on December 3rd. The week after that is Christmas. The week after that is New Year's.
Well, I think your comment earlier was maybe not a lot of changes from the draft, so we should hopefully not hitting you. But then it makes a ton of changes, and it would all be new.
Either way, I think that week of the 17th, 18th, 19th, I mean, that's the only one that's really.
17th.
Right.
If we want to wait to see what the board does on the 16th.
I could make a suggestion that might make it easier, because we're getting into that chaos zone. If we have the ability to, and I think we do, is to give that both the option of either being in person and virtual or fully virtual.
Sure.
If we're only going to be putting out their agenda items and trying to create a hit list without trying to go into too much discussion.
Right.
That should be pretty straightforward for us to get out there, to get it logged. And then at that point, I would think there'd be a fairly short turnaround right after that list would then get distributed.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
it may be good to try to get those subcommittees formed prior to the first meeting too. We could somehow do that by that time.
Yeah.
So is everybody good with that? 17th?
Are we having a meeting then, or are we doing virtual?
It'll be your option.
Okay.
17th, in person or virtual, but the specific purpose of the meeting is to identify tasks/topics. And then.
In the afternoon of the 17th.
6:30.
6:30.
The evening one on the 17th?
I can do
Yep.
6:30.
6:30.
And Mr. Chairman, at that point, is the intent here for the subcommittee formation for us to request the one we'd like to be on? And you're going to look at how it balances out with where people want to be? Make sure that it's a balance between the two subcommittees?
Yes.
And go from there?
Okay.
Thank you.
For sure. I mean, I don't want to force anybody into a subcommittee that they have no interest in.
Sure.
But we will have to discuss the balance, make sure, everybody's not in one and there's two people in the other, or that their representative fields or background are weighted one way or the other.
Does it have to be done by category in the charter, or could it be done by like infrastructure versus economics versus?
I think that's open to any interpretation. My opinion is just those are the two names of the committee, why you're there, what you're bringing to the table, I think can be our own
Discussion, right?
discussion, absolutely.
I would think we should have that discussion at the meeting on this.
Okay,
I'm an engineer, I know infrastructure.
gotcha.
I'm not real good with money. I like that mindset.
So once again, I think from what we discussed earlier, infrastructure is a chapter in here, but I don't think we're going after infrastructure, right? It may fall out of something that we have to address, but we wouldn't assign, in my view, somebody to infrastructure on the December meeting because it's not a focus area for us.
So it's not a strategic plan. So
Right.
it's underneath economic development.
Right.
Strategic plan.
Right.
We need to keep it with.
And I would say infrastructure is one of the big obstacles to things that are cited in the charter, so that would be why I would bring it up, but it has to be a discussion.
Yeah, and maybe I misunderstood again what Don was saying, but you're saying within the economic growth strategic topic, how infrastructure, where infrastructure, future, are we gonna spend any more money on infrastructure? Or are we gonna try to build out what we have? That kind of, did I miss you there, or are you saying you wanted to come?
I
Yeah,
want to make sure it's sustainable growth, so it's just a matter of whatever ideas people have, being able to inform.
right.
I mean, I could see along that line that, the infrastructure discussion would necessarily come into the picture for particular types of developments in certain areas that could overwhelm it. And I mean, I don't see, we're not being directed here to take a full-on review of the infrastructure thing at all. It'd probably rather be a question of, well, given the existing infrastructure that's in place, is this a factor, and whether or not we want to,
Grow in that area, in what direction?
Okay, I feel like we're talking in tongue a little bit here. What is the piece of the infrastructure that has you most concerned?
If decisions are made to update the comprehensive plan in a way that's not sustainable, so in other words.
So you're worried about sustainability of what?
Of the infrastructure, of the environment,
Okay, the
income,
environment.
tax revenue of the county,
Okay.
long-term viability of the county financially.
Okay. I needed that clarification because I think of infrastructure as being really broad. And that wasn't what I saw this group doing. I understand your concern and I could see where this could lead to that. So thank you.
Sure.
I think Don has a legitimate point. Back to Bob's point, I don't think that we would be charged with it. My understanding is there's some dialogue with the board in figuring out how to bring things forward. One of the things that I think is important for all of us to remember is this doesn't control development. This guides development. Your zoning and subdivision regulations control development. I think it's important to know that because I think so many people over the years get into, that this is the rule of law. And I did, become a certified planning commissioner through Virginia Tech certification, which was a wonderful class, and I getting drilled in my head. Another gentleman who taught that, Mike Chandler, about understanding what a comprehensive plan is and what is zoning and subdivision regulations and how you control development. And so it's important we understand all of that. I do agree that a sustainable infrastructure plan, we could go into litany of things, not just water and sewer. We could get into roads. We could get into all of those type of things. And so I think those will come up. They have to in some conversation. And I think we got to be careful that we don't get so far down a rabbit hole that we're wrapped up into some topics that could become mind-boggling, or eat up a ton of time. So I don't know. I think it's all back to I think Don said it's all intertwined, right? How did it all play out together? And maybe the planning commission gets into some things later on, and that's one of the things they choose to put a group together to tackle and bring some recommendations forward. They're the planners. I think it's important we get our planning commission to understand, they're the planners. And that's what they're charged with. You read their charter from the state, it talks about planning and zoning.
I think that part of the thing that steps on the next step of what Bill was saying is that the development of the future land use plan, the key word there is future too. So a lot of these things that were just mentioned, infrastructure, schools, water and sewer capacity, roads, those are all things that are going to fall out of the direction that is being guided with the future land use plan. So the next task then logically does become, okay, if we target the western part of the county for intense economic opportunity growth, how are we going to be able to achieve that with water and sewer infrastructure and roads for accessibility and those things? And that's how we get there in the future. So I definitely hear what you're saying, and I think that is probably a logical second step after that. We just have to be thinking about it as we're doing it.
On at least these two subcommittees, you've identified as being likely, given where the strategic plan looks at the moment. You know, myself, I'm interested in serving on both of those two committees. And I'm certainly happy to provide, the mapping capability for real-time look on both cases and produce whatever the committees want produced. I'm happy to do that. So I'll balance myself out.
Subcommittees can't meet at the same time.
Take it.
That brings up something I thought about earlier and had forgotten because we went down some good paths there. Subcommittee meetings and their public, they will also need to be, put out and recorded. And so just remember that as we go forward, when you want to volunteer for both of them, that's going to be a task in making sure those are all, so when we say it's only 7 meetings, it could be 50 by the time we've done this and 2 subcommittees. Remember that.
It was 80 before you said that.
Right.
December 17th.
So. All right, any other topics for discussion? I think we're at a good place where we need to be. Everybody's got their homework. Liggins is getting us the draft strategic plan. Everybody else's is to review that and the 2021 comprehensive plan so that we can come on the 17th at 6:30 p.m. with our task and topics that are germane to economic growth, business and development, housing and residential growth. 2 main topics. Yes.
We have 2 individuals sitting in the room, Barbara Jaycox and Martha Sickle, both from Plan RVA.
Yes, sir.
And people fully understand what Plan RVA is. When you want to take a quick stab in about 2 minutes, a minute of what Plan RVA is, and we have a follow-up to that.
Sure. So Plan RVA is the Regional Planning District Commission. We are about 50 years old and serve the localities of Powhatan, Goochland, New Kent, Charles City, Hanover, Ashland, Chesterfield, Richmond, and Henrico. That works.
That's
9 localities here in the Central Virginia region. And our purpose really is to promote both from a technical assistance perspective to local planning efforts like this, but also coordinated and cooperative efforts. So Barbara has been with the agency for longer than I have and can speak to the history of the type of work that we've done with Powhatan before, but definitely work along Route 60 and looking at the corridor and how the transition from Chesterfield into Powhatan and kind of what the changes and that context looks like as we move out into our more rural areas. But also just bringing together colleagues from around the region. So your planning director, your economic development director, your environmental staff, your clerks, all of those folks, we convene on a regular basis so that your staff members here in the locality have a chance to connect with their peers and kind of swap stories and best practices. So there's lots of I think, support we can provide to Roxanne and Ligon and bringing content if you would like, and just kind of connecting in. I know Mr. Powers has been keeping us up to date on the status of the strategic planning effort, and just really want to be able to extend any kind of a resource that we can, whether that's additional data, GIS, research on best practices. I think I took a look through the recommendations and the priorities of the strategic plan and weighed in a little bit on things I thought we might have some expertise to help with. And so we're just ready to kind of support your staff in any way that we can moving forward.
Perfect. So, having said on the RRPDC, which is the old term, they were a great resource for us. And thank you for agreeing to kind of help guide us a little and all of us to be able to reach out to them. I do have one question. I happen to sit on the Y board as part of my community support. And there was a mention the other week by a recent study done, and it was called Axis or something like that, or it was done by... Yes,
Alice?
Yes. And so how detailed is that study, and is it something that we can read and not go to sleep with? Or is it something that is huge, or would that be fit this group or help this group in any way?
Yeah, so ALICE is an acronym, and it's a resource supported through the United Way. And so there are available resources, I can pass them on. ALICE stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. And so it's a way to, one, humanize, so we named it Alice to be a person's name, but it's a way to humanize and bring, I think, more to bear about the challenges that working people have in affording life these days, whether that be in an affordable housing context, so certainly definitely relevant to one of the work groups that I think has been maybe identified, but also thinking about it from an economic development and kind of an upward mobility perspective, just sort of really understanding. And so we could give that data set that would be able to sort of, you throw out like incomes and numbers and housing affordability, and it's all just percentages and numbers. I feel like you get lost in it. But then we can start to really say, this is what this type of employee, the typical employee earning X amount of money, this is the types of jobs that looks like here in the county, and that kind of thing. It starts to be able to, I think, make it a little bit easier to think through who we're talking about and what the solutions might be. So, I think it could be a really nice resource. We do have the ALICE data through our United Way of Greater Richmond and Petersburg for the entire region. And if I am not mistaken, you can break it out by county. I don't know if we can go deeper than that. I don't know, but we can work together to try to figure that out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wondered, and you use some of those words. I kind of wrote some notes for myself and the bad words,
So like
affordable housing, workforce housing, density, all those words just create so much uncomfortableness with the community, and understanding that to me is important, whether it affects this group or not, but thank you.
Sure.
I sit on the board for the free clinic. And we use it all the time, sort of understanding what population is that's coming to us for care. And it's people who are working, but they don't have insurance.
So is the data set that you have the region? So are all your numbers normalized for the region, or are they normalized by area within the region?
So the ALICE data set is an index, and so it's a specific way of indexing, and it is unique to this region. Our regional affiliate of United Way International has, I don't know what the terms are, so I'll say subscribed loosely, but they've kind of enrolled in that nationwide program, and so that's available, but it's an index, and so, it does some, I think, kind of cool dashboards around various things, but it takes, I think to the example, it takes, what does it really take for a single child care worker to be able to function, or you can pick any different profession, but that kind of thing. We also have other data that's unique to the region around affordability and kind of the relationship between income and other types of expenses, cost of healthcare, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up? Is Plan RVA going to be available in our meetings? Will they be involved in, these types of discussions, or is this just for tonight's kickoff?
I think it's It's up to you.
I thought-
Yes.
Hey, Don, my understanding was when I asked that question, yes, they would be. So I'm not trying to put you guys
I think
on the
One
spot.
of us or one of
Yeah.
our staff.
I was gonna say,
Because it will depend on what, if it's a data need, then we've got a team of data analysts, three analysts. So they could come and could do a separate presentation on any number of things. Operability index is another aspect of what we're looking at for indicators on housing affordability, et cetera. We're also working on a comprehensive economic development strategy, just kicking that off. So we could certainly provide very specific data as requested. Or we could also make sure we're, in attendance at these meetings.
I just underscore that. I think you'll most likely get me or Barbara or a member of her team, but if you want the detailed answers, knowing beforehand so we can get that expert would be better than me.
I think it's important to recognize here for the structure of things that, that doesn't give that organization really want to seat at the table. It's rather if members of the CWG would like to ask for help or on a particular point, you can go to them, but not a general partner participation.
Right.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, one last question. So, not to muddy waters, but just like to have things clearly understood. So there are 12 voting members on this committee.
Yes.
And then when let's say we come up with a recommendation that says we will only allow 40-acre lots in the county. That comes out of, we will vote on that as a recommendation.
Yeah, there has to be a consensus out of the group.
Well, 12 members, but we're 11, but the other 12, Jamie and Bob. If it's a 6-6 vote, would it go as a no recommendation, or would it go as a?
It was a no recommendation.
It would go as a no recommendation per Robert's rules.
Take 7 to move it forward.
Correct.
Thank you. Just wanted to clearly understand.
Yeah, I mean, and that discussion was had a little over a week ago between Bob Powers and myself because he wanted to keep it uneven. And I had no issue with it being even in that it's not a super majority, but it definitely pushes it one way or the other. And in my opinion, you're going to have to push to a 7th, not just get, so to be a 7-5.
Didn't matter to me anyway, and I had no conversation. I just wanted to understand.
Yeah. I mean, just to give anybody a background, I think originally Mr. Powers had asked me, there was some miscommunication about being on the board. I thought it was as the Commissioner of Revenue. His opinion was that it was as a representative of the Ag Forestal District. But I think a better representation of the Ag Forestal District is Mr. Riley. So that's how that came about, and we ended up with 12 instead of 11. So
I like Bob a lot better.
Y'all probably will by the end of this. And so if there is no other business and everybody's hearts and minds, go ahead.
So are we, if we have 12 voting members, are we gonna have to call a quorum at the beginning of the meeting? So in other words, if only 10 attend, would we still need 7 votes for anything that we wanted to put through?
Yes, is the answer. The quorum will be set by Robert's rules. If we don't set any other organizational rules today, then it'll go by Robert's rules, which would be 9 to do a quorum, right? Am I doing that, Matthew? You want to look up Robert's rules? But I believe it's 9 would be a quorum. And then you would still need 7.
You would still need 7.
If you've only got 9 present, you might want to think about your motion before you make it.
So that my follow-up is proxy. So how are we handling proxy votes? Are we all open to proxy votes?
This came up on the planning commission, and they do not allow proxies. The feeling is if you strongly believe in something, you show up for it.
Right.
And that worked pretty well. I think at this level, proxies just.
Well, we've already given one proxy to the sheriff. So I'm going to disagree with you in that when you look at public safety, there is somebody dying is gonna be much more important than anything that's gonna happen on this piece of paper in that moment to those people who they're pumping on.
Jamie, I have to, I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
But there's a clarification to that statement though, because they collectively are still just one vote.
Right, and that's where I was gonna go with my proxy is, I would like the proxy to be the person's vote and not given to someone else. So there's a difference in a proxy, I'm gonna mess the language up, this is why y'all made me chairman. There's a difference in a proxy, which is giving someone else your ability to vote when you're not there, right? Which I have no problem with him appointing a person and it not be, but I don't want Chris's vote to count as 2 because Dr. Brown can't be here. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
if you can't be here, it is a absentee vote, I believe is the way that the word would be, so that your vote is still in there and it can be sealed and provided to the chairman. And that's how it counts. It's gonna be made public when it's opened anyway, right? So it can be handed to the chairman, you know, if we wanna set that rule now, do we wanna say a time frame? Just to be safe, it has to be an hour before the scheduled meeting. That vote, like I can't be sitting here and you text me, that's not okay. It has to be in an envelope given to me about, you know, what we're discussing and voting on, because everything we vote on will have been discussed at nauseum before the night when it gets voted on, or the afternoon when it gets voted on. Does that make sense?
What would,
I'd even like to see us make all of our votes at the night meetings. That may be a little bit troublesome, but you know, just putting it out there, I would lean toward anything that we vote on being one of the evening meetings where the public can be there.
So, clarification, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna allow remote participation.
Right.
In a meeting, would you, let's say, could you join that meeting and vote remotely?
Absolutely.
I think the required, for the required statement is you have to say where you're at the moment. You know, I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, anywhere street in Hampton, Virginia.
But be in Zoom or whatever electronic, what are we using now? Do we not use Zoom?
Zoom.
It is Zoom. So you be in the Zoom
So you
meeting.
can vote, you can
You can vote on the Zoom meeting,
Zoom
absolutely.
meeting
Because in my opinion,
or proxy, I guess.
yeah, in my opinion, that bar has changed greatly since COVID. You not physically being in the room doesn't mean you're not present at the meeting. If you're on Zoom, you're included in the meeting and the discussion, recognized by the chair, the floor, blah, blah, blah.
I think that, you know, Barbara's comment seems to me to be pretty well taken. Not in opposition to what you're saying here, but I think it's, you know, you don't want to get a situation where you have the proxy come to the meeting and while they may have been given a specific, you know, vote to be passed on a particular issue, I get that and tell them that in advance. But if the proxy sits there in the course of time and other topics come up for which there have been no guidance from the actual member, then really, it's not serving anybody's interest to have the proxy suddenly decide to participate and take a vote. So I think you got to be limited for the vote to the case where, you know, this communication is made in advance. Okay, this person has a proxy, deliver my vote, you know, on this particular matter. Any wider than that, it gets pretty uncomfortable.
See, I wasn't even allowing that. You're allowing somebody to carry my vote that night and change my vote that night?
What could happen, that's,
Well,
so you're saying they have to identify their vote to you at least an hour prior to the meeting.
Right, and that's an absentee vote, that's not a proxy.
It's not a proxy.
right, since I asked for one, I'll clarify. I have full confidence Rudy can speak for me.
Right.
That's what a proxy is to me, and I'm on 13 different boards.
Yep.
From state, national, and local. We use proxies in most of them. And what we do is that person carries the same weight in that chair as you do. So
that's right.
Whatever he would discuss or whatever vote he would have would be my vote.
So I'm not disagreeing with your statement, but I'm saying there's also, that definition also allows me to say, I'm giving Don my vote tonight. So whatever way Don votes is now worth 2 instead of 1. That's what we're trying to prevent.
Well,
that's.
I
Say again?
But what I, you know, he'd only be voting for me. And the reason I asked for a proxy in the first place, I do believe these meetings are important, but there are other things I do that are going to be more important, to be quite honest with you.
And that's what I was acknowledging.
I generally-
I'm acknowledging that.
Yeah, I generally.
But what I don't want is you to give yours to Dr. Brown and hers count as two that night because Rudy's got a Christmas party.
Your absentee vote.
So the absentee is what I'm putting out there as an option, but you have to acknowledge when you do an absentee vote, you are missing any discussion that might happen that night that may have swayed your vote, and that's your issue in
Yeah,
being
that's
able to
between
be
me and my proxy.
Right.
What I'm getting at is, you know, I generally stay out of zoning issues. It's not exactly my bailiwick, being your sheriff. But I was asked to be on here because one of the biggest issues I've seen throughout the county, same thing I deal in law enforcement every day, is a lack of education on how these processes are done. We don't communicate with the public well enough. So I agreed to join because of that reason and that reason alone. To represent, to a voice on the board that said, if we're gonna make decisions, we need to explain to people how we make them, not just the result. So that's why I'm here. If I'm going to be here, I'm gonna have a proxy, and if the board decides we can't have proxies, then I will not be.
I don't think that.
Yeah, I'm supporting your proxy. I'm making sure that we understand that if you are not present, you can't pass your vote to another person that's already on the board so that they're carrying now a twofold, I mean, voters rank choice.
I don't, Mr. Chairman, I don't think that was Don's question at all. I think his question was.
It's just a numbers question.
If I want a proxy.
Right.
You're a process, and I think what you're offering is reasonable if they, and it would be delivered to the chairman 1 hour prior to a meeting. Either, that's in person.
I can take it in.
I think it needs to be written.
Yeah, it needs to be written. No ifs, ands, or buts.
It wouldn't be
But
an
it can come
envelope.
to me in an email or a written envelope or whatever, and it will be made public at the meeting, at the point of the vote. I don't know that it needs to be made before a motion is made. It will be brought once the motion is
You
made.
will miss the opportunity to your point, any dialogue that goes on that.
That's correct.
But that's your choice. So you have three ways. Come to the meeting, vote in person.
Yep.
Attend the meeting through a Zoom process.
Yep.
And vote. Or if you can't do that.
Send it to me an hour ahead of time.
Proxy, you have to have it to the chairman 1 hour in advance of that meeting, either in writing.
Good. Organizationally, make that as a motion, ma'am.
Suggestion.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
One, can we consult with county attorney before the next meeting on this process?
Sure.
Just make sure we're in the legal side of it. And then two, at your next meeting, come up with a policy on it, if she's okay with that. And set limitations of how many times you can do it virtually and specific reasons why you're virtual. I think that's where the board would go with it. They actually don't allow it virtually.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you, they're getting paid. And I'll say that, I'm on the clock. Rudy's on the clock. Like, we're not trying to fool anybody, but they have reasons for that
Right.
politically that someone would avoid a vote. That's why that is that way. So I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm 100% in compliance. I think that is the policy. We just put it in a motion and have Callie sign off on it, that county attorney. I'm 100% comfortable with that. So friendly amendment to make sure the county attorney says we're within our rules. We're not breaking any rules.
I agree 100%. I think I think the state at one time, and I haven't been involved for the last 5 years, would only allow you to attend a certain amount of meetings via Zoom.
Right.
I don't know if that's still the rule or not, because one of the things I didn't read up on. I don't really care to.
But I honestly don't have a problem with that. If you have to do every meeting Zoom and you're up there, you know, putting dialogue out and sending us stuff ahead of time to discuss, I don't have a problem with it. If somebody does, now would be the chance to speak like that, you know.
I have one little thing.
Yes, sir.
On Robert rules, quorum, 12 members would be 7. A motion is carried by majority vote of those present and voting. Abstentions are not counted. Abstentions are not counted as a vote. Majority is calculated based on those who are actually cast votes, either for or against, at the meeting.
Right, so the one that triggered, the only thing that's triggered out of there, because we set our own rules for the other part of it, is that 7 is a quorum. I'd rather see 9.
Wait a minute, hold it. Thought he just said that if there's 9 voting members there that night, the quorum would be less.
Correct.
Right.
According to
Per Robert's rules.
And that's what I'm saying, but we can adopt something. If we're gonna do anything other than Robert's rules, we need to discuss it and adopt it now. And we all already agreed, I thought, that we wanted, what I won't call a supermajority, but is a 7 out of 12 to have anything pass. Where that comes into conflict with Robert's rules is what creates a quorum. I thought it was 9, he's saying it's only 7. We can make our own quorum rule, we just have to agree on it now if we're doing it outside of Robert's rules.
Right.
And my suggestion is not.
Yeah, and even with 9, on the basis of the supermajority you're talking about, even with 9, we don't want the possibility of a 5-4 decision that governs the action of the county.
Right.
So, I mean, one way or another, to get something passed, there's got to be 7 votes on it.
Okay, so 7 will have to, regardless of, if 7 come, you need 7 votes.
7 votes.
Well, 7 come, you don't have a quorum. With what I just suggested, if you go with Robert's rules, then 7 is your
You have to have
quorum.
7.
I'm suggesting that our own quorum be set at 9.
Okay, those numbers make sense. 7 votes from a group of 9. I mean, that should be achievable for something that the group agrees with.
And I don't think we're gonna have a whole lot of absentee. I mean, I think everybody that's sitting here is very interested in being here and coming to the table. The only thing that would prevent me from being here would be a family member or personal sickness or something like that. I mean, that we're committed to be here, but I would like to see it on paper that we're talking about 9 being a quorum, not 7. That makes me uneasy. But we need to do that as a.
We're amending, again, on here as a meeting, we would be following Robert's rule. We have the ability to not follow Robert's rules if we choose to do so.
Absolutely.
It's another good question for the county attorney.
Correct.
So we're saying 9 would be a quorum, 7 would be the majority needed.
Yep.
I'm having to put that as a motion, subject to the county attorney saying anything to the contrary.
Second.
And she'll let us know by the next December meeting. If that's not right, we'll fix it then.
Call the vote.
Properly motion, any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, motion passes.
We recommend everybody checks their schedules, because it's.
Yeah, that would be imperative, not minutes, but if you could get us that calendar schedule as soon as possible, we would appreciate
Yeah, I
that.
think we'll
Yeah.
have to do that.
Minutes, we can wait a week or so on, that's.
We'll check the calendars for this room specifically and make sure it's done.
Thank you,
And send out calendar invites.
thank you.
So we do need to still vote to approve the process of Teams meeting, absentee vote that we outlined. We did not make a formal motion on that.
Yes, that's what we were in the process of doing when the rabbit hole came up. I agree with you 100%. So we've passed the 7 and the 9. Now we need to adopt the absentee 1 hour prior to meeting. If somebody wants to put that in a motion.
So moved.
Second, Don? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All
And
right.
it does come with clause subject to county.
Subject to county attorney approval. All.
Phrase that again, so.
We'll start the next meeting.
Okay, so the process would be, you can attend remotely via Teams meeting. You can,
Or Zoom.
Yeah, just say online, because.
virtual meeting. You can provide chairman with a sealed written, one way or the other, a written
Not
vote.
sealed, because you can.
Or
No
you
less than
can
1 hour.
provide a proxy to carry your vote.
No.
Not a proxy, sorry, we eliminated that.
Yep.
But there was a third one. What am I-
In person,
In person,
online, or the 1 hour prior to
Yeah, I went to
is
that.
considered an absentee vote,
correct.
not a proxy.
We are allowing the sheriff to proxy.
Yeah, he's proxy.
Correct.
Really
Proxy. We,
Yep, we already accepted that earlier.
we already passed that.
In the interest of public safety.
Thank you. That's right. Public safety.
But you came right in with the ticket. Thank you.
All right, everybody comfortable with where we're at? Anything else you want to discuss before December 17th at 6:30 PM here? And ready, have done a little bit of homework at least to come and talk about topics we want to identify.
Well, it only took us an hour and 35 minutes to get organized, so I hope we, pretty good work.
I think it's pretty good work from where we came from.
You got the right.
Can we get the draft strategic plan within maybe like the next
20
48
minutes?
hours?
Do you not have it there?
Oh, I can pull it up. I'll pull it up. I know where it is. I just didn't want to get ahead of my skis at all.
One more.
I move we adjourn.
Oh. All in favor of adjournment? Aye. Thank you.